Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So I have new polling to share, some that's good, some that's not good, not too great, a bit concerning for Kamala Harris. But before I dive into that, I want to introduce you guys to Donald Trump's secret daughter. News broke live on air at a Trump rally that Donald Trump has a daughter that we never knew of. So check this out.
Look at these beauties over here. Hello. What's your name?
My name is Rosa Kowalski.
Well, is this your first Trump rally today?
Yes,
Okay, so tell me, why are you here to support President Trump?
I am the adopted daughter of President Trump. I am Rosa Kowalski.
Oh.
Yes, and I am his vice president of Trump.
Okay, okay.
Not Vance. I don't hire Vance because he's not good.
Oh, well, I wish you good luck in this election then.
So there you go. Not only is she Trump's adopted daughter, according to her, she is also his vice president. These are the people that Donald Trump attracts. Move over, Ivanka, right? Daddy's got a new favorite. He never made you his vice president, did he? So anyway, it was not all fun and games, I will admit, at Trump's weekend rallies. I wanted to briefly talk about Donald Trump's latest remarks at his rallies. So there's been a lot said over the last few days about comments that will undoubtedly incite violence, pour gasoline on the bigotry that's already burning in our country. I'm not going to bore you all by repeating all of this stuff, his disturbing rhetoric from this past weekend. Suffice to say, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And so when people say, oh, you can't call him Hitler, yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can call him Hitler 2.0. Okay? Let's just settle that right now. What I think, though, the media should be blasting in swing states, because a lot of that stuff, people just blow it off, right? They have a failure of imagination. They don't think Donald Trump's going to do what he says he's going to do. They wrongfully, especially the young voters who weren't around during his last term or were too young to remember, they think that there are going to be guardrails and that, oh, it's all bluster, right? So they're not going to take a lot of that stuff seriously. What they will care about is how Donald Trump's policies are going to affect them and whether or not he lied to them before. So I think that these remarks that I'm going to share with you should be blasted everywhere about how he screws over his own workers, how he has basically admitted that his first and only real legislative win in office was a huge mistake. So here's what Trump had to say about paying his workers overtime.
I know a lot about overtime. I'd hated to give overtime. I hated it. I'd get other people, I shouldn't say this, but I'd get other people in, I wouldn't pay. I hated.
Now, if you were only watching Trump during that clip, I would recommend you go back, you rewind it, and look at the people behind him, because they didn't find his comments very amusing. And you know why? It's because I would bet money a lot of them rely on overtime to try to make ends meet every single month. But as usual, Trump talks out of both sides of his mouth. He claims that he cares about the forgotten man and woman. Oh, inflation, it's so high. We've got to do something for you people that are struggling. But then he admits that he stiffs his own forgotten men and women who actually did work for him after they've worked more than full time. As for his tax scam, he conceded, without saying it, that he screwed up. So you may not have caught this, I don't know, but earlier this month, Trump told a rally audience, and then he posted it on social media afterward, that he wants to undo the SALT tax deduction cap, the one that he is responsible for imposing. This was part of his quote unquote Tax and Jobs Act of 2017. Now, for anyone who isn't familiar with this deduction, Trump's tax policy put a cap, a $10,000 cap, on state tax deductions for property taxes, sales tax, and income tax. It used to be unlimited. You could write all of that off, reducing your tax burden, which we pay enough, right? But Trump had to pay for his tax giveaway to the rich in some way. And so this was one of the ways. He capped these deductions that really only hurts the people who are not wealthy. And here's the thing. There are analysts out there who get this wrong. You might hear or read that, oh, this SALT deduction, it only benefits the wealthy. It's only an issue in high tax states. That is not entirely true. And I will give you a real world example. So in California, there are areas that have extremely low property tax rates. There's a city, for instance, called Yorba Linda. It is mostly conservative. It has a majority of Republicans in the city. And the property tax rate is less than 1.1%. It is roughly 1.066%. However, California is a very desirable state in which to live. Regardless of what Republicans tell you, I happen to know from a friend that gigantic cranium Matt Gaetz, was in California over the summer doing some shopping with his wife. So they may talk shit about California, but they like it here because they know it has everything. It has the beaches, the mountains, the deserts. I mean, within, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you can be in all of those places, and great weather year round. So anyway, Yorba Linda also is very popular for myriad reasons. It's actually known as the land of gracious living for a reason, right? So property values are very high. For example, you can go find, depending on the part of the city, but pretty much throughout the city, I mean, there's really no bad areas there. You can go and get a 1,400 square foot starter home. I'm talking 3-bedroom, 2-bath, very basic starter home, not a big piece of property whatsoever, maybe a 6,000 square foot lot. You're going to pay $1.2 million right now. So, do the math. You can easily see why a $10,000 cap on all of these deductions across the board is not sufficient. And this is just one area of Southern California, and it's not even along the coast, right? This is an inland area. The closer you get to the beach, the prices are even more insane. So anyway, it was just hysterical to see Trump essentially say, I'm going to solve this problem that I totally created for you, right? I mean, he's the arson who wants to pretend to be the hero fireman. And his supporters are so ill-informed about his time in office, they were booing when he talked about the SALT deduction cap as if he had nothing to do with it. Now, his shtick is getting a little old for some voters. They're not ditching him, unfortunately, but they are getting a little tired of hearing about the fairy tale about the stolen election. So the Detroit Free Press News spoke with a few rally attendees in Michigan, and a few of the younger ones had some not negative things to say, but they're not all on board with the Stop the Steal nonsense. So sadly, the older voters still believe his lies, so kind of disproving the old saying about, with age comes wisdom. But 24-year-old Jordan Walton said, quote, "It sucks, but yeah, he lost." And then Walton basically put some of the blame on Trump. He said, quote, "Well, I think he kind of screwed himself, to be honest, because he wasn't promoting among his voters vote by mail." 19-year-old Thomas Van Overloop told the Detroit Reporter, quote, "I wasn't a big fan of January 6th and the stolen election thing. I think we've got to look to the future instead of looking back." And then 28-year-old David Ortez said he doesn't want to see another January 6th. And Ortez told the Reporter, quote, "No crazy shit. We don't need that. We have too much nonsense in the world right now, and we don't need more violence. That's the last thing we need." As for polling, I will give you guys the bad news first. So there was an NBC News Telemundo poll that shows Kamala Harris with a 14% lead over Donald Trump in regard to Hispanic voters. Now, you might be saying, well, how is that bad news, Gina? I'll tell you how. Although it's better than the lead that Biden had with Hispanic voters before he got out of the race. It is very low comparatively if you look at previous election cycles. So as you guys see in this graph, when Biden won in 2020, he had a 36% lead with Hispanic voters. And in 2012, Barack Obama had a 39-point advantage. Now, the one possible kind of, sort of, if we squint and stand on one foot, silver lining could be the 2016 numbers, because Hillary Clinton had the biggest lead of all with this voting bloc. She was ahead by 50 points, and she still lost, you know, in the Electoral College, or as I call it, the participation trophy. So a large margin, with Hispanic voters doesn't always translate to an Electoral College win, I guess is the takeaway. And here's why. And this is something that I have heard from a couple pundits. I have heard it from polling experts. There may be some truth to this. So Trump may be running up his numbers with voters that aren't going to matter, because they live in states that are going to go blue anyway. So, for example, there are a large number of Hispanic voters in California, but the state is overall predominantly liberal. So even if Trump wins Hispanic voters in the state, even if he gets a majority, he's not going to get those Electoral College votes, because it would take like a unicorn level miracle for him to win California. It's the same thing with like young black voters in New York, or maybe even Georgia, right? I mean, Georgia's not a solidly blue state, but New York is, you know, places like that. So this could explain why the national polls show such a close race, but some pollsters still think she has the advantage, Harris has the advantage. But there was another poll that was released today, very concerning. It shows Trump with leads in 5 out of 7 crucial swing states. So it's a polling company called Atlas Intel. They say that Trump is up by more than 3% in Michigan and Pennsylvania, approximately 1% in Arizona and Wisconsin, and just under 1% in Georgia. They show Harris winning North Carolina by just over 2 points, and then by almost 3 points in Nevada. All of these results are within the margin of error. And this poll appears to be an outlier because of what we've been seeing. But unfortunately, the 538 polling aggregator says that Atlas Intel was one of the most accurate in 2020. So not great, but as I keep saying, and I'm hoping this comes to pass, these likely voter polls may be missing some key voting groups who've never voted before. You know, because typically, and I don't know how, to be honest, I don't know how Atlas Intel does their voting polling, but most of these polls, or a lot of them, I should say, they will consider likely voters to be people who have voted in the past. So if it's a new voter, if it's people who just turned 18 or, 20 years old now, they didn't vote in the last election. Now, case in point, newly registered voters in key battleground states like Pennsylvania. So last week, I shared some not so great news with you guys about how Republicans, according to a local report, they had registered more voters in the state. A new report, though, the most recent report, shows Democrats have now overtaken Republicans because of a voter registration drive in August. So according to Axios news outlet and last week's voter registration numbers that they looked at, there are now 25,661 registered Democrats in Pennsylvania. There are 24,007 registered Republicans in Pennsylvania. And then there are almost 18,000 who are registered as no party. So that last group is really key. They could really swing the election, even if Democrats turn out in full force. So that's something to keep an eye on. Again, that is one of the most important states of all that swings back and forth. So we will see. Anyway, I will let you know as I hear more. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.